Hello, everyone, and welcome to the American Family Insurance DreamBank, where we believe in the transformative power of dreams. I'm Kritarika, a dream creator here at DreamBank, and on behalf of our team, we are thrilled to have you with us. For those of you who have attended our virtual or in-person events in the past, welcome back. And for those who are joining us for the first time, I'd love to take a moment to introduce you to DreamBank. Here at American Family Insurance, we believe communities are stronger and the future is brighter when people are actively pursuing their dreams. That's why we created DreamBank, an inspirational community destination and digital experience dedicated to dreamers everywhere. From our daily event series to immersive signature programs, there's something for every dreamer. Our offerings are designed to help you celebrate the dream journey, overcome obstacles, and to stay motivated. Now, to introduce our speaker, Rusty Gaillard. Rusty Gaillard is a former worldwide director of finance at Apple, turned executive coach, seeing the potential in others and helping them achieve. We are ready for you, Rusty.
Great. Thank you so much for the introduction, Kritarika, and welcome everyone. So good to see you here. I'd love to just warm up your fingers a little bit because I'm going to ask you to be active in the chat. So put it on, just say hello and welcome. And where are you from? Where are you zooming in from today? Because I know in this virtual world, we can be all over. So I'd love to hear from some of you where you're coming from, some right here in Madison. That's wonderful. I'm actually not in Madison. I'm zooming in from California. So good to see you spread around. Another Californian, Wisconsin, Texas, Missouri. Awesome. So good to see you all today. So I'm going to share my screen here so we can, as we get started, what we're talking about today is building confidence and courage. And I'm going to share with you a little bit of a story. As Kritarika said, I worked at Apple. I spent 14 years there. And during my time at Apple, I saw a number of people leave the company, not to go on and work at another tech company or something like that, but to go do something totally different. One of them was a person who was on my team who was a financial analyst. She did data analytics, and she left to go study and become a practitioner of traditional Chinese medicine. I thought that was so interesting. What a change from data and analytics to going to traditional Chinese medicine. There was another person also who worked in finance who left. He had some young children and he wanted to be there and present with them. And so he decided to take time off and be an active and engaged dad, full-time with his kids. These were inspiring stories for me. I had been 25 years at this point in the corporate world. That was all I had known from my working career. And here were two people who had the confidence to leave and go do something totally different. It got me wondering, could I ever do something like that? I felt really inspired by this, but I had no idea what I would do. And I didn't have the confidence to walk away from everything I built over 25 years and go do this. So I'm curious just to check in with you guys because confidence is the subject of what we're talking about. Confidence and courage is our subject for today. How confident are you in where you're going and what you're doing? Just put a number between 1 and 10 to check in here on the chat. Throw in a number to rate your own sense of confidence. How confident do you feel in where you're going and what you're doing and your ability to achieve it? So I see some 5, 6, 7s, a couple 7s. That's awesome. But a lot of that right in that 5 to 7 kind of range. Totally understandable. And that's where I was. Because when you're about to take a step and when you're thinking about taking a step, it can feel like this. It can feel like you're taking a leap. It's like, gosh, am I going to make it? Feels like there's some risk involved. It takes some courage to do that. And there's a lot of fear. And that's totally normal. Fear is part of the process, right? Like for me, as I thought about, could I leave Apple and what would I go do? Fear of failure, fear of rejection, felt like it might be irresponsible of me to go do that. It was much more responsible to stay in a large company with a steady paycheck. There's a risk of financial instability, all of these different fears that show up. So I'm curious to just check in with you guys. What kind of fears show up for you as you think about moving forward towards what it is you want? Whether that's a dream, whether that's more responsibility in your job, it's leaving your job to go do something else, to make a change in your family. What are some of the things that you're afraid of? Is it failure? Is it loss of stability? Is it what other people might think about you? All of those things are totally normal fears. So today we're going to focus on, and great, I love to see you guys active in the chat here, and I'm going to talk more about that in 1 second, but let me just put up our objectives for today. And they're very simple. Well, I want you to walk out at the end of this time that we spend together with, first of all, an understanding of what is the number one factor that undermines your confidence. Second thing is I want you to walk out with 3 tools that you can use to boost your courage and confidence. And finally, I want you to come out motivated and ready and inspired and ready to take action. So I was mentioning the chat earlier. I'm so happy to see you active in the chat, because what I know and what I've seen time and again in all the places I've presented and the people I work with is the more you invest yourself, the more engaged you are in what we're learning about, the more you're going to take away from it. So if you're willing to have an open mind, if you're willing to engage, if you're willing to be active so that you take more out of this, so that you get more benefit out of this time that you've chosen to be here, say yes or say I'm in. Put a statement of affirmation in the chat that says, let's go, bring it on, and make it happen. I'm ready. I'm stepping in. I'm fully there. I'm 100%. Put something there in the chat that just indicates you're ready to make it happen. I love it. Let's make it happen. So great comments in there. So, all right, that is a wonderful place to start. That is the kind of energy that makes a huge difference. I'm going to start us off with the law of mind. And the law of mind is very simply how we create all of the results in our life. And when I say results, I mean everything. I mean your health, the quality of your relationships, your income, the kind of work that you do. All of the results in your life are created based on the decisions and the actions that you take. This makes sense to a lot of us, right? What I do, of course, impacts my results. There is a little catch here, because many people will look outside of themselves and say, well, what are the circumstances out there? And those are the things that determine my results. But if you dig into that a little bit more, you start to understand that even in bad economic times, even in recessions, even in challenging environments, some people thrive. There are some people who thrive and there are some people who don't. And so if that's the case, it can't be about the environment, because if the environment were dictating your results, then everybody in that environment would have the same outcome. And we know that's not the case. So it really is about the decisions and actions that you take. But then where do those decisions and actions come from? They come from your beliefs and your feelings. Because if you believe something is possible, let's just say riding a bike, then your decisions and actions are going to flow much more naturally and you're going to get results. You can dig even a question beyond, or a layer beyond that, and you can say, what are the thoughts and the stories that drive your feelings and your beliefs? I'm going to give you a little example on that. And by the way, I saw a little notice come up that you have a raised hand. If you have a question, stick it in the chat, or actually even better, hold it to the end. We've got a lot of things going through the chat. And at the end, we're going to have a little bit of time for Q&A. You're welcome to put it in now, but I may miss it because we got a lot of things going through. So let me give you an example of how the law of mind works. One of my clients, we'll call him John, worked in a client services organization, and he was supporting clients. However, every time there was a conflict, every time there was a problem with one of the clients, he was nervous about it. He didn't want to step into that, and he didn't want to deal with the conflict because he had a story in his mind about this time in the past when he had stepped in and it didn't go well. And so that story made him feel nervous, and he had this belief that I'm not good at it. And so because he had that belief, he decided not to say anything. And he let his boss, who was usually in the meetings, take care of the problems. And the result was, of course, that he didn't speak up. His boss handled it really well. He started to build this belief of, gosh, my boss is better at this than I am. And so he never spoke up. So it's one thing if this were just a linear process, but it's not, because it reinforces itself. And the result that he got, that his boss handled the situation well and he didn't, reinforced his thoughts and his stories. I'm not good at this. All right. Understanding the law of mind, that it starts with your thoughts and your stories. I'm going to ask you to put in the chat, what is the number one factor that undermines your confidence? So if you think about the law of mind and you think about how you walk through the world, the decisions you make, your beliefs and feelings, your thoughts and stories, go ahead and put in the chat. What is the number one thing that undermines your confidence? I see doubt, failure, fear, being in my own head, thoughts. I like it. It's your thoughts, anxiety, fear. So anxiety and fear in this beliefs and feelings level. And below that, where's the story that's informing that? Sounding like I don't know what I'm talking about. Again, that sounds like a story you're telling yourself. So all of these things at the bottom level is, how do you start to shift what you're thinking, shift the stories you have, and start to think differently so that you can build a level of confidence? Now, sounds easy. It's not easy, because our thoughts are kind of like sheep. If you put a bunch of sheep in a field, they go all over the place. And your thoughts are like that too. They go all over the place. And it's hard to corral them and keep them together. And part of that is just biology. Our brain is always thinking. You cannot stop thinking. You will always be thinking. That's what your brain does. But you can focus your thinking. And so rather than have your thoughts go all over the place like sheep, what if you could organize your thoughts? What if you could organize your thinking to be productive? I saw this video on YouTube, which I loved, and it's about a farmer who organized his sheep. So check this out. It's playing in a little bit of fast motion, so the sheep look like they're very fast. But it's a real video of this farmer who organized his sheep into a heart shape. And think about that for a moment. Like, what if you were able to organize your thinking so that your stories that you tell yourself, the sense of criticism, your anxiety, failure, worry, what if you were able to organize your thinking into the heart shape rather than going down all these different paths of worry and anxiety and so on? That's one of the things, that's what we're going to be talking about today, is how do you organize your thoughts better? Because your thoughts is the number one thing that undermines your confidence. And when you can shift what you're thinking about, you can build more confidence. All right, let's get into the tools on how you do that. The first tool is focus, because you have to know where you're going in order to build some confidence. I'll give you a simple example from my own experience. I talked about these people who had left Apple, where I was working at the time, to go on to study traditional Chinese medicine, to be a stay-at-home dad. I was so inspired by that, and I had no idea what I would do if I were to leave and go do something else. I had no focus. I had no clear answer to that. And if you don't have clarity, you'll never have confidence. So for my example, it's like, gosh, I would love to do something that's meaningful. I would love to have a dream that I want to pursue, that I feel passionate about, and I'm going to go forward on. But I don't know how to do that because I don't even know what it is. I had to find that sense of clarity first. And that took me years, by the way, and I wasn't sure I would ever find it. There were times when I was there working and I said, well, I think I'm just going to continue working here until I retire. Not that that was a bad thing. Apple's a great place to work, and many people would be very happy to have that job. And I was, but I still wanted something more. It took attending a workshop where this person asked me specifically to set aside all of the reasons why I can't do something, set aside my worries about how much money would I make? What would other people think? Am I qualified to do this? Do I have the right background? If I ignored all of that for a moment and just thought about what would I really enjoy doing, it was in that moment that I got the idea to become a coach. And now I had to focus. Think about it this way. Think about someone who says, I want to have better work-life balance. How confident would you feel if this was you? If you say, I want better work-life balance, or we'll use that as an example. I want better work-life balance. How confident would you feel in being able to achieve that? Well, I don't know. For me, that feels like I'm not sure if I'd be able to achieve that. So if someone came to me and said, I want better work-life balance, I would ask them, what does that mean? And they might say, well, I want to spend more time with my family. I'm great. What does that look like? Well, I want to be home for dinner. Okay, great. Is that every day? Is it every other day? Is it just on weekends? What does it mean to be home and have dinner with your family? So do you see where I'm going with this? I'm going to this point of clarity to get really specific and focused on what success looks like for you, because it's way easier to achieve. I'm going to be home and have dinner with my family Monday, Wednesday, Friday every week. And you can have way more confidence in achieving that than you can in achieving work-life balance. Because work-life balance isn't clear. It's not focused. So when you bring focus into the equation, you can understand what it is that you're going for, and you can build your confidence in being able to achieve it. So I'm just checking with you. I was talking to Maddie and Kriterica before we started here, and it sounds like people are all different ends of the spectrum in terms of how clear you are about what your dream is and what it is that you're going for. So let me just put in the chat on a scale from 1 to 10, how clear are you? How focused are you on what success looks like? Do you have a clear dream or vision? Of course, yes would be a 10. And there's all sorts. Okay, we've got all the way from 1 to 10. We've got the whole spectrum. So for those of you who are at the low end of the spectrum, who are still trying to figure out what is my vision, I encourage you to embrace some of those questions that were asked to me. What if you set aside some of the constraints and just allow yourself to think openly? And for those of you at the high end of the spectrum, make sure that you're truly clear. You're not in the I want work-life balance mode, but you're really specific and clear about what that looks like. All right. So most of us, once we get clear on where we're going, once we get focused, we feel a little bit like this, right? This sense of like determination, even confidence, belief, like I'm going to go get this done. Let's do it. And then after an hour or a day or a week, we might look like this. I know this is exactly how I felt. I felt fear. I remember the day that I was signing up to get trained and certified as a coach. I had gotten this idea. I was excited about it. I was on the phone getting ready to get trained and certified. And I was both excited and terrified at the same time. I was terrified because this was a big financial investment. It was a big time commitment. And I was working full time. I was in the middle of a contentious divorce that was taking a lot of my time and energy. And when my son was with me, I was there. I was on duty full time. So I had a lot of things going on in my life. I wasn't sure I had time. And what if it didn't work out? What if this really wasn't what I wanted to do? What if this, in fact, was a failure or a detour going in the wrong direction? I had so many worries and fears about, is this the right thing to do? So I want to tell you a couple of things about fear. Number one is it's not a bad thing. In fact, fear is a good thing because it tells you you're moving in the right direction. Now, why is that? Because if you've got a dream, if you've got a vision, if you've got focus and clarity on what it is that you want, it's going to require change, right? It's requiring you to move forward. And when you move forward, you're going to have a little bit of fear. And why is that? Because your brain is wired to keep you alive, to keep you safe, and not to take risks. That's just a biological fact. And because your brain wants you to not take risks, anytime you take a step forward and do something new, move towards a vision or a dream, you're naturally going to have some fear. So fear is not a sign that you're doing something wrong. Fear is a sign that you're doing something right. That's why it's the second tool you can use to build courage and confidence, to change your whole understanding of what is fear. It's not a bad thing. Fear, in fact, is a sign that you're making progress. Now, let's go back to the law of mind for a moment, because we need to then look at what do you do with fear? Well, first, let's go back to the bottom of that pyramid. You remember the bottom of the pyramid of the law of mind is your thoughts and your stories that you think. So if you start to think and tell yourself the story that fear is a good thing, it means that I'm moving forward. It means that I'm taking positive steps. Then you're going to have a different feeling about it. You're going to have a different belief about it, which can inform your decisions and actions, which of course impacts your results. This is exactly the process that I went through. I was on the phone. I was excited. I was terrified. And I had to remind myself that fear is a good sign. It's a sign that I'm making progress, that I'm moving forward. And so I had to decide, am I going to choose with the part of me that's excited and vote for that? Or am I going to choose from the part of me that's afraid and vote with that? And fortunately, I remembered what fear was, the sign of progress. I said, well, of course, then I'm not going to choose to go backwards. I'm going to choose with the part of me that's excited and go forward. So ask yourself, have you ever taken an action that you were nervous about, that you had some fear? Check in with yourself on that. Remember that moment. Remember what it is that you did, whether it's bungee jumping or skydiving or taking a positive step in your career or asking somebody out on a date. We've all had these experiences where we do something where the desire is stronger than the fear. And really, the fear is a sign of you're doing something right. You're doing something that you care about, and you're moving forward and having a new experience. So before we move on from this, I just want to add one last piece, which is courage is action while afraid. Most people misunderstand that. So many people think courage is not being afraid, and that's not true at all. Courage is a willingness to move forward even when you're afraid. So turning fear around, it's not a bad thing, it's a good thing. It's a sign of progress. And remembering, courage is your ability to move forward even in the presence of that fear. All right, we're going to keep moving here in the interest of time. And I want to talk for a moment about imagination. Now, check in with yourself. Do you feel like you have a good imagination? Actually put in the chat. I love to hear this, because kids, you always think about kids as having a good imagination. But again, put a 1 to 10 in the chat. How good is your imagination? How vivid is your imagination as an adult? I see some numbers, again, of the whole spectrum. We got 1s, 2s, 5s, but we have 8s and 10s and 6. So, and there's another 10. So we've got numbers all around the range. But my belief is that we all are good at imagination. And so just try on this scenario. Let's just say you're sitting at home and you're waiting for your spouse or partner to come home for dinner, and they're not there. An hour goes by. You try to contact them, you text, you call, no response. 2 hours go by. You're unable to reach your spouse. When I put myself in that situation, I discover, oh, my imagination is actually quite active. I can imagine all sorts of things that have happened to my spouse or my loved one. And so many of us have an active imagination, but it tends to be way more active in the direction of all the way things could go wrong rather than all the way things could go right. And so it's a question of, we have an imagination, but which way are we using it? Are we imagining the best or the worst? So one of the things, and this leads into the third tool that I want to share with you, which is faith. And when I talk about faith, I'm not talking about religion, so we can set that aside, but this is not a religious conversation. I'm talking about faith as an expression of your believing power. It's your ability to believe in something. And if you use your imagination to amplify your sense of belief that you are going to be okay, that you're going to land on your feet, everything is going to work out. And if you can build that belief to the point where you have a faith in it, which is just a really strong belief, if you have that strong belief that it's all going to work out, what would you do? Here's a little simple tool that I use to help illustrate that, or to help in those moments of decision. And it's what I call the rocking chair test. The rocking chair test is, assume that you're 85 years old and you're nearing the end phase of your life, and you're sitting on your front porch in a rocking chair and reflecting on your life. Now, the fact that you're 85 years old, you're on your front porch, you're in a rocking chair, it already implies that you've landed on your feet, that you're okay, that you've had a good life, that everything has worked out. And from that perspective, you can look back to this moment in time and say, what would I do? What are the actions that I would take? I used the rocking chair test when I was contemplating making that final decision to leave Apple. I described the moment when I was on the phone signing up to enroll in training to become a coach. But I encountered that same experience of fear multiple times as I went through the process of transitioning out of my corporate career and into my coaching career. I remember the very last decision I had to make was to go in and tell my boss that I'm going to leave. I had already told my boss I was transitioning out and I was down to half time and I was spending half of my time on my coaching business. But then I set a deadline. I said, this is it. This is when I'm going to go full time as a coach. And I was afraid, like, gosh, is this really it? Am I really going to cut the cord? Am I really going to take this final step? I still didn't know if it was going to work out. I had all sorts of concerns. I used the rocking chair test. And I said, well, gosh, if I'm 85 years old and it's all worked out and I'm sitting on my rocking chair, reflecting on my life, and I look back at this point in my life and I ask, what is the right decision for me? Am I better off to stay in a safe and a good, stable job? Or am I better off to take a risk, to go move into something that is risky, but exciting and passionate? And I just feel a lot of purpose in pursuing. For me, the answer was so obvious. If I know it's all going to work out in the end and I'm going to be fine, go take the risk. Go take the new adventure. Go in that direction. And so I want to just ask you, if you knew a year from now, 5 years from now, 30 years from now, that you're going to be just fine, you're going to land on your feet, you're going to be okay. If you had that faith, if you had that deep believing power that you are going to be okay, what action would you take today? What is something that you would do that would move you forward towards your dream? If you'd like to put that in the chat, you are welcome to, because the more you identify those things and share them with others, the more powerful they are, the more likely you are to follow through on them. So you are invited. You don't have to. Some of these things may feel personal to you, and I understand that. But ask yourself that question. If you knew you would be okay, what would you do differently? So that faith, that believing power, that is a powerful way for you to build your confidence and your courage. Yeah, I love the comments that are coming in here. Start over, just start, take the risk, do it. Exactly. If you knew you'd be okay. So it's these three things. These are the three simple tools I've got with you. And by the way, I have a whole suite of tools that I use with my coaching clients and in trainings and longer presentations. We just have a short amount of time here, so I'm keeping it short and sweet. Focus, which is be clear about what it is that you want. And if you're not clear yet, that's okay. Keep working on it and go for what it is that you would love to have. Fear, not as a bad thing, but as a good thing. And faith, which is just your believing power. Believe that you're going to land on your feet. It may not go all exactly as you had planned, but you will get there. I'm going to just end with a brief story. I know we're coming up on the end of our time here, so I'm going to end with a brief story about a man named William Murray. William Murray was a mountain climber, and back in the mid-1900s, there was an expedition that was being organized to go up Mount Everest, and Mount Everest had never been summited before. And William Murray was world-renowned, and Edmund Hillary was leading the expedition. He came to William Murray and said, "We want you to come." William Murray's first question was, well, gosh, how much does it cost? Edmund Hillary told him what it cost because there were no corporate sponsors or anything. He had to pay his own way. And William Murray's first response was, I can't afford that. There's no way I can go. And Edmund Hillary said, come on, this is going to be great. We're going up Mount Everest. And William Murray said, it sounds amazing, but I can't afford it. And he said no. So the expedition went. Edmund Hillary led this expedition, and they made great progress, but they did not make it to the top. A few years later, they were organizing another expedition, and it went back to William Murray and said again, we're going this time. We learned so much on our last adventure. Come with us. We're going to the top of Mount Everest. And what did William Murray do? He asked, how much does it cost? When he heard the answer, he said, there's no way I can afford that. I'm not going to go. Now he had focus. He knew what the goal was, where he wanted to go. He was excited about it. But he was overcome by the fear, and he didn't have the faith that it would all work out. And he said no. Once again, the expedition did not make it to the top. At the end of that second expedition, though, Edmund Hillary came down, and as he was in base camp, he turned around and he looked back up at Mount Everest and he said, I'm going to get to the top of you because you're not growing and I am. Before the third try, they went back to William Murray and they said, hey, we're making it to the top this time. I know it. Will you come? What do you think William Murray did? He asked a different question this time. He didn't ask, what does it cost? He said, what's the deposit? And when he heard the deposit, he said yes. He didn't know the whole path. He didn't know all the steps. He didn't know where all the money would come from. But he knew that he could scrape together enough to pay the deposit, and he said yes. He found the courage to start. He went on, William Murray went on to write a book about this. And what he said was he didn't know it, but just by beginning, he was already 90% of the way there. Because a whole stream of events issue from that one decision, which you could never predict. And he made it to the top of Mount Everest with that expedition. Now, oftentimes it feels like your dream feels like Mount Everest. I understand that. I've been in that place too. And that's why I want to end with this quote from Gandhi, which is, if I have the belief that I can do it, I can surely acquire the capacity. And I know you can. Thank you so much. I'm going to wrap us up here just in the interest of time. I am available to stay on for a few minutes and chat. If you have questions, you're welcome to put those in the chat. You can follow me on LinkedIn. I'm very active there. That's the only social media platform where I am. Or you can reach out to me by email if you've got questions. You want to learn more about my coaching, my speaking, my training programs. I'm happy to share that with you. Would love to hear from you. And just let me know that you heard me and connected with me here on the DreamBank workshop. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rusty, for this presentation. And I took so much notes. I have a full page of notes to take that I took about this. And I don't even know what to say, because this presentation just gave me and my experiences so much hope. And my favorite takeaway is when you said, what would I do if I know that I will be okay within a year? And I told myself, and I'm going to tell the guests as well, for accountability, is to stop letting fear stop me from moving forward. So that's my take that I'm going to do going forward. Thank you so much. And
wonderful.
I don't see any questions that came through. There was a question that came through about the recording, and this is recorded, and this will be on our YouTube channel within a week. But that's all. We do have a question. How do you practice? Oh, I'm sorry. Someone just asked it.
Oh, I see it there.
Okay,
I see it there, Katarika. Yeah.
Okay.
How do you practice the 3 F's every day? What does that look like in your daily life? What mistakes did you make in the beginning? Well, I'm going to answer the last question first, which is I still make mistakes every day. And I think that's part of being human, right? As much as we would all love to be perfect, it is not a straight line journey. But practicing the 3 F's every day is really about, and I'll start with the first one, focus. Is as you wake up every day, just to remind yourself, where are you going? What's important to you? And the more clear you are, the more focused you are on your destination, the more successful you will be. And just to give you a quick scientific study about that, they brought a group of people into a gym and had them walk 100 yards with 15-pound weights strapped to their ankles, right? Totally doable, but probably uncomfortable, right? And they split the group into 2 different subgroups. One group, they said, go for it. The second group, they just said, keep your eye on the finish line. That was the only instruction they gave them. The second group that was told to keep their eye on the finish line, they finished about 20% faster and they exerted 15% less effort. Now, think about that. They measured this scientifically. The only instruction was keep your eye on the finish line. So that idea of focus, about knowing where you're going, waking up every day, keeping your eye on the finish line, that's going to make a huge difference. As you think of not letting fear stop you, thank you, Katerika, for sharing that. Remembering that that's a positive thing. Fear is a positive thing in your life, and it means you're moving forward and doing the right thing. And then, having the belief that it's all going to work out, building that faith, that believing power. So it is a daily practice. It's about reminding yourself of it. Sometimes I set reminders on my phone. It chimes every hour or two and reminds me, hey, it's all going to be okay. So find the things that work for you to keep this front and center so you can keep moving forward.
Thank you for that. We do have another question. How can you calm your nerves when you have a big decision to make regarding your career? And will you have faith? And while you have faith, it's going to work out, or you're afraid due to trauma response and PTSD from past bad experiences?
Yeah. So I'm not a therapist, and so I don't want to make any kind of medical claims about how best to deal with PTSD and trauma. If that is a significant factor in your life, I do suggest that you find professional support for that. That said, when you have a big decision to make in your career, that feels very much like the decision that I faced. And this, to me, is where faith plays a huge role. And it's the faith, again, not from a spiritual sense, but faith from the sense that you're going to be okay. It may not work out exactly as you expect it to work out, but sometimes our best experiences in life are the ones where a wrench gets thrown in the work. Those tend to be the things that you remember. So remembering that if you're going to land on your feet, and that's why I love the rocking chair test, right? If you know you're okay, and you put yourself on the other side of this situation and look back and say, what feels right? What feels right to you? And then go with that. Trust yourself in your own wisdom and knowledge about what's the right action for you.
I love that. That's great. All right, so we can do one more question. Do you do vision boards, and your thoughts about it?
Yeah, I think a vision board is great. I personally don't use a vision board in the way that most of them are used, but I think they're wonderful. And that's just me. It's like, it's finding what works for you. But you need to find something, again, that helps you keep your vision, your dream in focus, helps you stay energized and reminded of it. So I have pictures on my wall that are inspiring to me, and I do other things for me that help me stay inspired and connected to keep focused and connected on my vision and my dream. If a vision board works for you, awesome, go for it. I think they're wonderful.
Thank you for that. All right. Okay, we'll do one more question from Olga. We'll do one more because they're great. How long did it take for you to change your thoughts? We'll end with that.
Well, I would say I'm not done. I think that's the short answer is, I think we stop learning and growing when we die. So I'm not in any hurry to stop learning and growing. But that said, it doesn't take long once you start to really embrace these principles and apply them in your life, right? And so I asked you at the very beginning, how ready are you to really engage in this? Because this is great, but you may be inspired and find something interesting and it's like, oh, that was really cool. But if you write it down on your desk and then put it off to the side and you just go about your regular day, nothing is going to change. So the question is, what are you going to do with this? How are you going to apply it? And so who are the people in your life who help to keep you accountable to that? Who help you stay focused? What are the structures you have in your life to help you continue to practice these tools and other tools that you've learned to change your thinking? If you really embrace that and you're serious about it, kind of like going to the gym, you got to build a habit of it. But if you build that habit of taking it seriously, your thoughts can change and you can start to see results very quickly, inside days and weeks, if you're serious about it. Now, does the process ever end? No. but you're going to make progress and you're going to keep learning and spiraling up this process. I mean, it really is a spiral because you're going around, but every time you do, you're at a higher level of elevation because you've learned and you've grown as a person.
I love that. That was a great way to end the Q&A. that was the last question, but that was a great way. Again, thank you so much, Rusty, for being here and giving us this presentation. And thank you to all of our DreamBank guests who joined us as well. And for more of our DreamBank events, please be sure to check out our DreamBank Madison website. And this video will be uploaded into our YouTube within a week. Thank you, everyone. Bye.